That's that's worse for sure.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. And today we're talking about what SEO is and even a little bit about what it is. And I'm Paul, and I'll be your host today. And joining me is Ken and Ian. So let's jump into this topic. Ian, why is SEO important? We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I don't know if we've ever really, you know, kind of gone in depth about it, but why is SEO important and how does it differ from SEM and PPC? Because those are really two different things. They're related, but they're two different things. So can you tell us the difference between those two and why SEO is so important?
Sure, I'll do my best. So, and Paul, I think these are great topics and great questions because it's really, getting back to basics and helping people understand at a foundational level what is SEO and how will it benefit you. So, awesome choice of topics. I'm going to start with SEM because SEM is kind of an umbrella term. And just so people understand what it is SEM is an acronym. It stands for search engine marketing. It's actually kind of a term that's misused a lot in the industry, but really what it means is it's everything you do from a marketing standpoint to gain your business exposure on search engines. And so that combines SEO, search engine optimization, which is the organic side, and also the paid side of advertising in pay-per-click advertising. So I think it's really good for people to understand, just in case somebody throws out that term or they see it online. SEM is kind of the overarching generalized term of, this is the type of marketing or the strategy that we're going to employ, and it includes both organic and paid. So I'll start with paid because the topic's really about SEO. So I want to make sure we lead into that. So if people aren't familiar, I'd be surprised if some people aren't familiar with, what a search engine result page looks like. But when say I'm looking for a roofer in my area, so I type roofer near me. Google, and I'm going to use Google as the example because Google's 90+% of all searches. So Google's going to serve up what it thinks, first of all, are the best options for you, and that's really what this discussion today is about. But at the top of those results is usually local search ads. And those are the Google guaranteed ones that you see in little boxes at the top. And that's one form of Google advertising. And then below that is our Google ads, which is actually a different type of Google advertising, but it still fits into that world of SEM and pay-per-click. And then you have the map listings. And in the map listings are both organic listings that are really fed by your Google business profile. And then you have your, usually there's one ad at the top. Sometimes it differs, but usually there's at least one ad at the top of the map listings. And then you have your organic listings, which are truly the ones fed by your SEO efforts. And then at the bottom of the page, you have more paid ads. So it's Google obviously exists to make money, but they also know statistically that the organic listings are the most powerful listings on those pages, the map listings, which are organic, and the true SEO driven organic listings are the most clicked on results. So first of all, I just want to say, like with PPC, with Google ads, some people think I'm just going to throw some money at that and see what sticks, right? But it really does. I just want to make it really clear. Google makes it easy for you to advertise, but Google doesn't make it easy for you to get a great return on investment. That's really not what they're about. Obviously, they want you to keep spending money, so they're going to make it as easy as possible to spend money. And they're going to offer some suggestions that will hopefully help your ad account. But in the end, it's really about them making money. So you really do need to have expertise to get the most out of your PPC and your Google ad spend. And just as this is true in the SEO and the organic listings, which I'm about to share about, it's true in Google Ads that the law of diminishing returns is very alive and well, and that if you set it and forget it, you will start to see less and less return on investment on your Google Ads, because that's just what happens. You need to be super vigilant. You need to keep tweaking it. You need, in order to get the most out of it. Lastly, the other thing that falls under search engine marketing, the SEM, is SEO. And by far, this is the strategic part of it that will actually get you the best, and the most long-term return on investment for your business. And it will actually grow the more and more and more that you feed into it. So SEO, search engine optimization, is all about the things you do as a business to help your business show up on those organic search results, which are the highest performing on the whole page. So positions 1, 2, and 3 get the most clicks of any clicks, regardless of whether it's ads, maps, anything. Now, it depends sometimes on what people are searching for, but that's still true from an average standpoint. The beauty of SEO is that you don't have to actively be paying Google or Bing or any search engine for paid ads to get this really valuable type of visibility. If you do the right things, you will continue to get more and more visibility and more clicks, more and more leads, and better return on investment. But just like Google Ads, it has the law of diminishing returns. You can't just build a great website with lots of SEO in it, search engine optimization strategies, tactics, and then just leave it, because the world never stops changing. And even just this past week, Google launched another algorithm change. It happens all the time. And if you're not continuously doing the very best things for your website, for your online presence from a search engine optimization standpoint, you're going to start to see yourself fall behind your competition. So it takes consistency. It takes consistent investment of whether that's hiring expertise internally or externally, like an SEO expert. It takes time. It takes energy. And it takes time for SEO to take a hold. So you have to think of it really like planting a tree versus, in order to get fruit from the tree, it takes time for it to grow. It takes time for the fruit to come to fruition. Whereas PPC starts to, like, you can start to get some of those cheeseburgers out of PPC right away. So that's kind of my overview of what SEM is, how Google Ads and how SEO fits within that. And the last thing I'll say about that is, I think you need to actually invest in both or all of SEM, so both paid ads and SEO, if you can, because that will give you so much greater exposure on those search engine result pages, which are qualified buyers searching for your particular product, service, business. And it behooves you as a business to give yourself the greatest chance of somebody clicking on you versus the competition. That's my summary. How was that, Paul?
No, it was great. I agree that you should invest in all of it because, like you said, it'll give you the best chance and the best coverage. But, PPC, that should really be a supplemental strategy because, like you said, it's something you pay for. You stop paying for it, it disappears. But I'm not sure what the exact statistics are, but only like 3 to 6% of the people actually click on paid ads. They know they're paid ads. And if you can show up organically, you have the organic results have a higher click-through rate, obviously, but PPC should not be your main strategy. SEO should be your main strategy.
Yeah, like I just as some kind of proof of it's actually, I'm going to provide kind of 2 case studies, one that supports what you said, and then one that's a bit of an outlier. In almost every business, well, in every business where we install a systematic marketing engine into their business. So that's doing all the right things for their business from a marketing standpoint, which includes SEO, which includes pay-per-click. We see an increasing return on investment because you're just doing all the right things consistently. But it does take a bigger investment on a monthly basis in order to get there. We have a small business we've been working with for a while. We did build out kind of a lower end website for them because they didn't have a lot of money to invest. But in that lower end website, it's packed full of great SEO elements. It's optimized to the hilt. In the past, they had us work on their Google business profile. Again, they stopped investing in some of the SEO stuff just because they're a seasonal business, and they shut down for the winter and then they never restarted the stuff up. What's interesting though is that we do their Google ads on a seasonal basis, and consistently we're seeing like a 29 times return on investment for them just from the Google ads. So they are benefiting from good SEO that was done for them in the past. But even just like if you're a small business and you're trying to get a foothold and you can't really invest in a really great website yet, you should still invest. Like you should save up your money, invest in a really great website that's SEO optimized. You should. But then if you can add on to that, even just some incremental paid ads on top of that, and as you get a return from those things, reinvest them back into your marketing. Like you can take your marketing to the next level if that's what you want for your business.
Yeah, and we have a client that we don't really even do anything with their website at this point. They had it, but it's fairly thin content. It's not SEO optimized, and they spend a lot of money on Google ads, and they do get a good return on that. But it's like, look, I don't get it, because SEO should be your long-term play, and you're completely ignoring that. And yeah, you're getting a good return on your Google ads, but the problem is you can't stop spending that money, because
Yeah.
it all goes away.
Yeah. Well, and just in support of that, so there a recent article came out. We all knew this was happening. We just didn't know kind of what extent. Um, but we all know that since 2022, Google Ads, and this is true in any ad platform, so don't think it's just Google Ads. Google Ads, though, I'm talking specifically about them. The return on investment started to drop.
Oh
It
yeah.
doesn't mean it wasn't good. It's still very, very good. It's still, don't get me wrong, like it's still working exceedingly well for clients. But compared to 2021, 2020, 2019, like what we're seeing is Google started to charge more in the back end. There's no transparency there. But an industry
Yeah, 'cause
article came out.
Google's all about the transparent web until it comes to them.
Well, and a recent article came out where a watchdog was able to basically monetize the increase, and it was a 5% increase just over last year. And we know these increases happen. But again, the point I'm trying to get across is in support of what you were just saying, Paul, is that if you don't create a long-term SEO strategy, you will always be paying for leads, and the amount you pay for a lead will always be increasing. Like, especially as competition online continues to increase. And we saw that, especially a boom after COVID, during and after COVID, because all of a sudden everybody woke up and they were like, I need to get my digital marketing world in order because I haven't invested in that over the years. And now I have to, because that's where we have to play now. Yeah, as a business, you have to be thinking long-term strategy, short-term strategy. How do we cohesively get those working together? Or you'll always be paying more and more per lead, which means you'll be, in essence, your profitability will continue to go down. And nobody wants that.
Yeah, and that's true. When COVID hit, the competition in the online virtual space, whatever you want to call it, increased, and that caused your cost per click to go up. It caused
Yep.
the return on investment to go down, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. So you really need to be investing in SEO. So My next question, Ken couldn't be with us today, so he recorded his answers. And my question for Ken was, there's basically three types of SEO, and what are those? And can you talk about them a little bit?
Okay, well, the three types of SEO really come down to technical SEO, uh, optimizing the technical aspects of a website, on page or on site SEO, which is really optimizing the content on a website for both users and search engines, and then off site SEO, where you're really focused on um, things that that help you build expertise, authority, and trustworthiness from other websites. For example, links back to your website, citations from directories and sites like that. So with technical optimization, this is some stuff that I think a lot of people kind of skip over. And when you get that cheap SEO proposal that sounds too good to be true, and it is, by the way, they usually don't include the technical optimization aspects. So first thing is you just need to make sure your website's crawlable, and that it is being crawled on a regular basis. It's shocking to see how many websites aren't being crawled because of just silly little things that people did or didn't even know to do to make sure that the website's crawled. So you want to make sure that you address the URL structures, the navigation, internal linking. All of these things are really things that you need to do while you're working on your website. You got to have certain things that you are addressing from a technical perspective. The elements around the core web vitals, how fast does your website load, mobile friendliness, basic blocking and tackling things that, again, most people skip right over because they don't know to do it. And it takes time, and it can be a pain in the butt. For example, making sure that your image files aren't giant files. They need to be small, lightweight files. You don't need the same image resolution on a website that you do when you have printed material. And the mistake is most people don't even change the size of the photo when they upload it onto their website. And so it's a giant file, and it slows the speed of the website down. You have a bunch of extra unnecessary code or script that's running when you have your website up in individual pages. You miss the opportunity to work with structured data in the right way. Paul talked about this, I think, last week or so, about making sure that you're putting the right structured data on your website and doing that in the right way. Security. Are you addressing the security aspects of your website? Do you have pages on your website that are orphaned, that you can't get to navigationally? And I'm not talking about landing pages. Landing pages, you don't want those to be crawled, first of all. But if you have a page that you want to be crawled and indexed for search, you don't want it to be orphaned where you can't find a way to navigationally get to it, either from the menu structure, or from links on interior pages. So definitely take care of that. When it comes to content, this is the thing that I think most people sell when they talk about SEO, and it's a fraction of what's needed. Now, is it fundamental? Yeah, absolutely. It's the basic blocking and tackling stuff that needs to be done. And honestly, I've always looked at it as, if the search engines are crawling your website and they don't see that you've not done the basic content optimization things, why the heck would they trust you to return your content in search results over a competitor or several competitors who have paid attention to that and taken care of it? So what do I mean by this? Things like title tags, meta descriptions, making sure that you don't have a bunch of H1 tags, header tags. The primary header tag for your website, again, it's really common to see web pages that have multiple H1 tags. You should have only one H1 tag on your website. But making sure that you use the proper subheading, of H2s, H3s, whatnot. A lot of people just simply don't do that. They do it because they think it looks good on a website, the way it's laid out. But again, the way you set up your header tags is really important. Missing alt text on images. This is what tells the search engines what an image is. They know there's an image there. They don't know what it is. So you need to tell it. And it's also really important for web accessibility, is to make sure that you're using alt text. And then just doing things like, open graph, so that it can, send signals for, for the appropriate social media sites. Then we've got off-site optimization. So here we're talking about, things like consistent branding and reputation across the web. Online reviews are certainly a part of that. Signals that are built, mentions of your business online through a variety of different sources. Could be press releases. They're not going to send links to your website necessarily, but they do send signals. Google does say, this business was mentioned here, and it just adds to the relevance factor for your website. Social media certainly, is a great way to talk about and get people from social media onto your website. And again, sending a lot of signals. Directory listings. This is still such an important, critical thing. And again, it's a low-hanging fruit thing that so many businesses just misread it right out. And it's a cheap, easy thing to do. Sure, it has additive costs potentially, but depending on how you do it, but it's so critical. Making sure your information about your business, the name, address, phone number, first of all, is on key directories to build these citations, and that the information about your business is accurate. If there's a lot of bad data floating around out there about where your business is located, your business phone number, even the name of your business, that can become problematic. And so, again, it's just simple low-hanging fruit that a lot of people just skip right over. And so the other thing, just to kind of summarize this and kind of wrap this up, is your reviews and your reputation. Getting online reviews, having, a strong composite review rating, getting reviews from multiple sources, responding to reviews, getting a steady stream of reviews in this concept we call review velocity, where you're getting reviews on a regular basis. All of these things wrap up and come into play when it comes to SEO. So those are really kind of the three buckets that I always think about. I mean, obviously, websites and the nature of a business can be fundamentally different. E-commerce sites, you still have to do these three buckets of SEO. But there are tweaks and nuances that you have to do versus maybe like a local SEO where you're focused on a business serving a very specific location. So anyway, hope that helps. Again, I do want to point out, I think most of the time when people get SEO sold to them as a service, the overwhelming majority of the time, it's that they only focus on what we call the on-page SEO, or the content optimization, where it's literally just plugging in content, for title tags, meta descriptions, and whatnot. And without a whole lot of thought behind, first of all, is it the right content? Is it the content that the audience needs to see, that's going to be meaningful for them to help them solve their problem, but also useful to help demonstrate the authority of the business?
Okay, so something he mentioned in there, and I think it's important, is you get these offers in your email in your email, hey, we'll get you on the page 1 of Google for a search term nobody searches for.
They
That's
don't say
usually what.
that part, though, do they?
Yeah, they don't say that, but that's what it amounts to. And
No.
look at the email address it's coming from. If this is coming from a non-domain based email, and by that I mean a free email, Gmail, Microsoft Mail, whatever it's called these days, Yahoo, this is not a legitimate business, and you're going to get ripped off. And I think that happens a lot of times where people are leery of marketing agencies and SEO services because they've been burned. But it's like, okay, let's be honest. You got burned because somebody offered you something cheap and you got cheap, and it was not a legitimate business.
Yeah. I have heard of people, we've talked about how we're sometimes marketing or SEO therapists. I have had businesses approach me where they've been burned by very high cost
Oh yeah,
SEO.
that definitely happens.
But you're right. It's much more, you see it far more often at the low cost stuff, but occasionally you see it at the high cost stuff too. So you just got to be really careful about who you choose and ensure they're the right partner for you.
Yeah, and I think we did a podcast a while back about how to hire a marketing agency, questions to ask, things to be aware of.
Yeah.
So Ian, this seems kind of fundamental, but it really isn't. Is how does SEO work? And in order to understand that, you have to kind of understand how do search engines work. So can you
Sure.
talk about that?
Sure. And just so people understand, uh, I will give a high level of how this works, how the Google algorithm, the Bing algorithms work. We have observational science to tell us how they work, but nobody but Google or Bing knows how what the algorithm's actually doing, right? So, but if we take a step back and just say, hey, how do search engines work? Well, at the easiest to understand level, a website exists, they crawl the website. Google, we'll use Google as an example. You have a website, Google crawls your website, Google indexes the results, meaning the results of its crawling of your website are put into its database that its algorithm can access. The search engine then ranks the website within its database against a myriad of data points. And then there's this complex algorithm that does basically, think of it as a matchmaker, where somebody is doing a search. So I'm searching for a dentist near me. The Google algorithm knows where I am geographically if I have location turned on. And it will find me what it thinks are the very best search results for my search. And again, it's all based on uh, the content from your website that Google has indexed, ranked, and matched with its algorithm. The search engine is then constantly monitoring what's happening. So it sent me to a website. The Google search engine sent me to a website, gave me some search results first. I clicked on one of the results. I went to the website. It then, if they have Google Analytics set up, Google then is monitoring, well, what's happening on that website? How many pages did Ian visit? How long is he on the website? How long is he on a particular page? Which pages am I paying attention to? And the reason Google cares about that kind of stuff is Google wants to know, was the search result that it served up that I clicked on, is that truly the best search result? And the only way it knows it is my engagement, my activity on that website. And then Google takes that information and it improves and tweaks the results. And if Google's constantly sending people to a website and they're bouncing off it, like they're not spending any time on it whatsoever, and this is generalized, right? There are some unique circumstances where that might not be true, but the lion's share of time, Google sees that as a negative because somebody's gone to a website that they sent them to, they bounce back, they're doing another search, right? They didn't find what they were looking for. And so that's in essence how search engines work. I'll go into SEO, but first I wanted to go back to you, Paul, and say, was there anything else that you would want to add to that for our listeners?
No, I think that was really good. It just, it's how search engines work. You have to understand how search engines work, because a lot of times we have people ask, from an SEO perspective, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's like, well, we're doing this because of the way search engines work.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that before you can really, especially kind of from a technical standpoint, like Ken talked about the schema or structured data markup. If you don't understand how search engines work, you won't understand why and how we do some of the things we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And for us at Outsource Marketing and for you guys at Changescape Web, the rigor that you have to go through to create all of the right signals to Google from that website and all of the optimizations that we'll get into in a second, the rigor you have to go through is there's like a huge list of factors that if you want the very best chance of ranking a website, you need to pay attention to all those factors. Like you can't ignore any of them. So it's we're all so used to Googling things that it almost seems second nature. But man, there's a whole world of stuff that's going on in the background on Google side, but also on every single website side that's ranking well. So let me answer the second part of the question, which was really like what is search engine optimization all about? Like how does it work? And so Ken talked about the three sides of it. The it's it's kind of like a triangle: the technical SEO side, the on-site SEO side, the off-site SEO side, and then within those, there's a myriad of factors. But if you were to take a step back and say, well, how do you guys effectively and successfully do search engine optimization? And it's this: we first start with a plan, right? We have a plan. We have a very specific process about what we do in order to get the best results. And that starts with understanding the business's goals. What are you trying to achieve through this effort? What are your highest valued services or products that you're trying to sell more of? What are the steps that your audience go through in order to buy from you? And then it's audience research. Who are these people you're trying to attract more of? What are their common pain points? What questions do they commonly ask? What are the FAQs, right? And then really it's starting to get now, after that, you start to get more into the deep research side, which is in relation to keyword research. So what are the highest value search terms that align with the goals, that align with the high value services or products they want to sell more of? Then you have to look at what is the search intent of those keywords. Are they commercial, transactional, informational, navigational? Because some of those will convert higher than others from a sales standpoint, but an informational keyword might be really, really important if somebody's trying to educate themselves in order to buy. You don't want to ignore informational and just jump into transactional because they're at different buying stages and you want to hit them at every buying stage. Then you have to research the competition. We were talking about how COVID kind of changed the landscape for a lot of businesses from a digital marketing standpoint. But the businesses that were investing wisely to begin with, it was barely a blip. Like they haven't lost traction because they were doing the right things. But you do have to understand what your competition is doing from an SEO standpoint, what their strengths and weaknesses are, because rarely does your competition rank exceedingly well for all the keywords you're trying to compete for. In fact, a lot of businesses, we have a windows and doors company that also does all exterior renovations or remodeling. A lot of their competition is very specific to one of their services. And so for us, we look at all of it, but we also have to kind of slice and dice it by service package, or we can't compete effectively with just a Windows company or just a gutter company or something like that, right? So You have to understand where the strengths and weaknesses of your competition are and what space they're filling, what types of content they're publishing that's on their website that's ranking, and what can we learn from them? What opportunities exist? Where are they? What are they doing really well? And where are they leaving money on the table and gaps for us? Because if you understand where your competitors' gaps are, man, you can fill those super fast, and they may not be the highest value keywords that you're eventually wanting to displace them from. But wow, you can start to build kind of your beachhead in order to take their competitive space quite quickly if you know what you're looking for. Then you have to look at the state of your website. So is your existing website SEO optimized? Is Google Analytics installed, right? Are you tracking it? A lot of businesses that come to us for SEO help, they have no historical data whatsoever because either Google Analytics was never installed or it was installed once and then it got broken, and maybe they did a website update and the script got broken, or the tag, and then they can, there's no data. Technical issues, websites break over time. It's kind of the law of entropy, right? That things break down over time. You have to be constantly vigilant with your website. Things on your own website will break. That happens. Broken images, maybe a WordPress or a plugin update breaks something. The thing we see all the time, and I'm sure you see this too, Paul, is broken links. Like if you're linking to an external provider or an association, or I find associations are constantly changing their linking structure, which breaks links for external links. So that's never good. But then also, what kind of content do you have on your website? Do you have enough content to give the signals to Google that it needs in order to help you rank well? And we've talked at length in other podcasts. In fact, I think we did one podcast that was just on the EEAT, the EAT. They lengthened it. They added experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. They added the extra E at the front last year. But that's kind of a rule of thumb, a philosophy, a framework that Google recommends you follow as a business to help you rank well. And then from all that research, you create a plan. You need to implement that plan on a consistent basis. You need to do some post-launch stuff. I don't think every business does this, but we always do speed and core web vitals checks, and sometimes further optimizations. Like we check the website before we launch it, after we launch it. We do post-launch indexing checks. So we actually watch to see what's happening in Google Search Console, which is a tool that's free that you can get your website on, which basically gives you the inside view of how Google sees your website. Are there errors on your website that need to be manually fixed? Are there other things? How much search traffic does Google see? And this is different than Google Analytics. This is more a technical SEO monitoring tool that they have in place. And then really it's about, to do SEO well, you have to monitor, you have to report, you have to optimize continuously, and you have to be creating content, good, valuable content that's driven and informed by the keyword research that you did at the beginning and the keyword research that you continuously do, because it never stops. People's search patterns change over time. And but that I hope that kind of simplifies or gives you understanding of the process to our listeners. But it's tough to do really good SEO. Like you have to be really, really rigorous and really, really good at what you do. And if you skip some of those foundational steps, and I'm going to say like research seems to be the one step, research and planning and competitive intelligence seems to be the three big things that I see a lack of in the industry, because there's a lot of people that can do parts of SEO that don't have the tools, the experience, the expertise, or even the desire to do some of these deeper things. Because obviously the deeper you get into this, the more time and energy it costs for the investment from the SEO company side, and thereby it raises the cost. But you have to think about it as a business that this is an investment. I'm investing in this in order to give my business greater visibility, grow my leads, and grow my business ultimately and my profitability of my business. And you have to think about it just like you would if you're investing in a better location and improving your location, putting up better signage and making it more accessible or nicer for your clients or your patients. You really have to look at it as a long-term investment, and it will pay off. Like the data that we see every single month when we're doing it for clients, it's massive. SEO by far, even for clients where they might have a really, really aggressive Google ads budget or some other ads budget. We just see over time, organic leads always keeps growing, 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 growing. And the cost per lead for organic leads keeps shrinking, 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 right? And whereas on ads, you can continuously grow the number of leads, but you have to keep investing more and more and more money, and the cost of lead keeps going up. So hopefully that's helpful. Anything to add, Paul?
No, I think that covers it really well. Like I said, it's kind of a complicated thing, and you have to understand how search engines work before you can understand why we do some of the things we do from an SEO perspective. And
Yeah, and
I
Ken
just
shared some really good technical stuff too, right?
right. And so leads us into the next question, and we hear this all the time. And hosting is really important when it comes to SEO, more so than people realize. So my question for him, we hear this all the time, is why do I need to pay like for premium hosting, as we call it? I've had this $7 a month plan for years, and what's wrong with that? Why is that a problem? So here's his answer.
Okay, let's talk about web hosting and its impact on search engine optimization. We hear it all the time. People, they want to go cheap with their website hosting platform. And I think that that's really short-sighted. If you're trying to rank for search, you need to think about having a quality hosting plan. There are a lot of bells and whistles that can be added that the typical business owner just is not going to have a clue about. So don't think cheap when you're thinking about website hosting. There are a lot of cheap hosts. The downside is that a lot of the cheap hosts, well, they're cheap because they're sharing resources across a bunch of different businesses. You have no idea what that other business or set of businesses being hosted on the same server as you might be doing, and that can cause some problems. So if they're doing spammy emails and they get blacklisted, that has repercussions potentially on your website. So I think it's really important, people, that you need to spend money on your website hosting. I mean, this is like the infrastructure that your website is built upon. And so it has repercussions on how fast your site loads, the security, the overall performance. Is your website up? The overwhelming majority of the time, and no website is going to be up 100% of the time, but you need to have a website hosting system that lets you know when there is downtime, and they're going to address it to get it back up as quickly as possible. Sometimes you want to think about, it really just depends. There's no necessarily right way. It could be an easier way to do this or not. Sometimes you have your email hosted where your website is hosted with the same provider. Not critical, in my opinion. The way you manage your email records and your hosting records is important. We recommend to keep that with your domain registrar because we think that's just easier. But, having things like FTP access. If you're building a WordPress website and you're using WordPress, our strong recommendation is use only a provider that specializes in WordPress hosting. They know what they're doing. They've optimized their hosting experience and their hosting platform around only working with WordPress websites. They don't try to be everything to everybody. Making sure that they provide security and an SSL certificate is included. I mean, it drives me nuts to see a lot of times with your cheap hosting, you wind up having to buy extra for security features or for backup features. There are a lot of additive costs that you may not realize, but you better have your website backed up. What happens if your website's hacked? How is it going to be restored? Is there a plan for that with your hosting, with your web hosting? Page load speeds are critical. How fast is your site going to load? Does your hosting plan provide features that are going to increase the speed? How do you know how fast your website loads? I like to go do a quick check of a tool like GT Metrics and put that in there and see how fast your site's loading. You definitely need to think about that, because one of the things that happened 2 years ago or so is that Google shifted to Core Web Vitals, and so it's really important to make sure that your website loads and addresses those elements through its hosting plan as efficiently as possible. And if you have a website that's not well designed from the Core Web Vitals perspective, your hosting plan isn't solid and doesn't address that, you're going to run into a lot of issues, and you're going to see your SEO drop. Security. So, Google wants to see every website with an SSL certificate. That's an indication that your website has a level of security behind it. But you want to make sure that you're not allowing people to put spammy information on your website or load or add a bunch of content onto your website. Because again, first of all, it's malicious. It could cause damage and problems to your website. It might make it crash. But also it could just add a lot of bloat and crap to it. Making sure that your website hosting plan does updates of the core WordPress software and your theme and your plugins on a regular basis. I think that's critical. Using a content delivery network so that your content can be delivered where, as fast as possible based on where the user's specific location is. And so using what's called a CDN, a content delivery network, gives you the ability to have your content delivered from servers, in the fastest way possible. A cheap website host doesn't give you those capabilities. So you definitely want to check out, different website hosts. We have only, as a matter of fact, honestly, there are only really 3 WordPress website hosting platforms that we will work with. We'll work with others, but we have a surcharge because the quality of support and the response time of support, with cheap website hosts, is horrible. And it costs us a lot of extra money if and when there's a problem, and there will be a problem. I mean, these things aren't perfect. So you just stop. You don't just go with a cheap website host. Make a good informed decision and get a quality hosting plan. After all, it is the thing that ultimately powers your website, which is the hub and the focal point of your business online.
All right, those are some good points. And something as he was talking that I thought about, should have turned that off, is when you're looking, a lot of times you can find these hosting plans and it's, like $7-10 a month, and you can have 15 websites. And what no one ever looks at is bandwidth and storage capacity. And if say you're a photographer or you have an image heavy website, that storage capacity is really important. You might be able to put 15 websites on there, but you have X amount of storage capacity. And if you exceed that, you have a problem. Well, you can't exceed it. They just won't let you upload anything anymore.
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting discussion, Paul, because it's I don't even know what a good analogy of this is. I was trying to think of one while Ken was talking, because it would be helpful for me when I'm talking to prospective clients or even existing clients who have hung on to their old hosting plans for some reason. But we now, like, the way we work is any new website build, we include the hosting for the first year, because we really believe strongly they have to move their website to a new hosting platform. And the one we've hand selected over the years is the very best we've been able to find. Just like you guys work with 3, we work with 2 basically. But we prefer one, and the reason is that it is rock solid. It's got exceedingly strong malware protection, and malware's everywhere today. So you don't want your website being impacted by malware. We've certainly had people reach out to us numerous times where their website has been taken down or taken control of by malware or ransomware or whatever. And if you don't invest wisely in your hosting and listen to your web developer, usually in this case, it's too late. Like, it's so painful after the fact, and you will pay far more to remediate the problem after the fact than if you just listen to wisdom, choose well. Like, this is, I can't speak for you guys, Paul. We Web hosting is not like a big money maker for us, right? We make enough to cover our costs in a little bit so that we can continue to invest wisely in some of the additional tools that we insert into our custom hosting plan, our raised level kind of premium plan, for security, for making sure everything's protected on your website. The backups are great. We can recover things quickly, blah, 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 right? All the stuff nobody really cares about until they have to care about it. So invest smartly in this stuff, people, because it will pay dividends. Your websites go down all the time, and having your marketing agency manage your website, manage your hosting, is usually the quickest and easiest way for you as a business owner to get up and running fast, because it's one point of contact. We'll do all the legwork to work with our hosting provider and all the things involved in order to get your website back up and running quickly, because that's ultimately what we care about as your marketing agency. We care about the hosting because it's a technical aspect that we need to deliver good results for you. But ultimately, as marketing agencies, we care about getting a great return on investment for you from your marketing spend. So we have a vested interest in making sure your website's up and running and performing properly.
Yeah, that's a good point. That we recommend the hosting we do. Again, we don't really make a lot of money off the hosting, but we use the service, the providers that we use, because, as Ken mentioned, that you can get this cheap hosting, but then you have to buy the SSL. Maybe they don't provide backups, or maybe it's a daily, automated backup, and you can't have on-demand backups. You can't go in there and back it up. You don't have a staging area. And by the time you add all these things, the hosting provider that we prefer, this is all included, SSL, all these things are included. And it's important because, again, the provider we use, they run Nginx in front of Apache. Now, that's a really technical thing that I'm not going to get into, but it's 2 different web servers that do. Apache does some things really well, and Nginx does some things really well. And what that does is it optimizes your load time. It load balances things, and like I said, I'm not going to really get into it, but it provides a better hosting platform. So I won't get all down in the weeds on that technical stuff. But last question, we're getting long on time here, and it's important. We all know that it's important to refresh or redesign your website from time to time. It's something that has to be done. But if it's done incorrectly, it can actually hurt your SEO. So I was going to start with you, Ian, but I'm going to start with Ken.
Good idea. Yep.
And then you can add to that. But
Sure.
yeah, it's not something to be taken lightly. You do have to plan for it and prepare for it, because it can cause some problems. So here's Ken's thoughts on this.
Okay, so when there's a website redesign effort, when you're doing this, you really need to think through how to make sure you preserve the SEO of the existing website, assuming that there's any SEO that needs to be preserved, and there's usually almost always something that you want to preserve. So step number one is, people they change URLs and they don't do 301 redirects, and and that breaks your website. It causes 404 errors, and it's a simple fundamental thing, and I think it's a great disqualifier for any web designer who's working on your website. I mean, we see this a lot, where somebody built a website where it's got like .html at the very end of the URL. Or index or whatever. And when you rebuild it in a platform like WordPress, it doesn't carry that .html forward. And so when you, or not dot, but the slash. So when you redesign a website, you fundamentally change the homepage URL. And that's a different page in the eyes of Google, and it forgets all of the history of the previous website. So if you had a website for 20 years under that other domain with that homepage URL, and then you change your URL structure, you're just destroying your SEO. The other thing that drives me nuts is, people, it just really gets to me. They hire web designers because they're sold on a really beautiful looking website with no SEO repercussions. And the web designer doesn't take into consideration what you have to have, for fast loading websites, because mobile is everything these days. Even if your website is seen predominantly by people on desktop, based on the nature of your business, Google's going to say it's more important on how it loads on a mobile than it is on a desktop. So you need to know that. They put big, huge, massive image files on there because because it's easy. It's easy to just upload an image from something you grab, stick it on there, boom, you're done, moving on to the next little task. And it's all visual driven. It's not technical driven, and no repercussion for SEO. And then the last thing that I just want to talk about is I think a lot of people, when they work on a website redesign, they miss content. And, you can't rank if Google can't find a page. And so if you don't rebuild that page and or map to it properly, when you do rebuild it, if you change the URL structure, that's just gone. And so you miss that opportunity. I think it's really important to just make sure you have a checklist, go through the process. I'm sure Ian will go into a lot more detail on this.
I may or may not, but
those are some good points. Anything to add to that?
yeah, I mean, this is so vital, and this has, I think, just to reiterate what Ken said, like, this is such a crucial thing. Like, I've been in website design development since the 1990s, like before the internet bubble burst, right? And back then, SEO was non-existent. Like, it may have been out there, but even Google search really wasn't a big thing back then. But
well, it was called keyword stuffing back then.
Well, no, this is even before keyword stuffing.
Okay.
And it was really about creating beautiful websites, right? And nobody absolutely, like, beautiful online brochures, everybody remembers spinning logos, all that kind of stuff. So back then we didn't care at all about SEO because SEO hadn't, like, people weren't even using Google back then, right? So, um, you know, over the years, the importance and vitalness of this has radically changed how we, as marketing agencies, you outsource marketing and Chainscape for sure, but the good ones out there, and I'm classifying us as some of the good ones, um, because we're so rigorous at this. Because again, we absolutely care about designing really great looking websites, but we care more about what is the end result we're trying to produce for our clients. And the end result we're trying to produce for our clients is business growth, right? And or whatever they tell us their business goals are. But I would say 99% of the time, clients say we need more leads, we need more retention, we need more revenue, right? Those are the big three. And so the website is critical for that because that's how people find you. It's one of the it's the pivotal hub of everything you do from a digital marketing standpoint. And just what Ken was saying, if you radically change the infrastructure of your website, so the links, the titles, everything, right? Like, you're just causing a whole bunch of mixed signals, broken signals to Google, which is where the lion's share of your visitors are going to come from. So the rigor that we do as an agency now, compared to 8 years ago, is far more exhaustive because we map out. So just to give people an idea of the process, yes, we use checklists. Yes, we maintain the URL, the linking structure and link naming structure of your website. We're often trying to improve that, but we're really careful when we do that. So we run an audit before we actually start even the website build. We create a spreadsheet of what are all the existing pages on a website. What keywords are they trying to rank for? What are their metadata, their meta descriptions, all of that kind of stuff, their SEO title. Because what we want to make sure of is that when we create the new website, that we're not creating negative changes, that we're only creating positive changes in the eyes of Google from a signal standpoint. So does it take us more work? Absolutely. Is it painful from our side? Absolutely. But it pays dividends for our clients because ultimately they're going to have a beautiful website. Like, we only create beautiful websites. And I don't mean like works of art websites. I mean websites that reflect your brand well, that attract and guide people into your business and into your message so that you can appropriately be positioned to outsell, outposition your competition. And I think from a business standpoint, that's the mix that you need. But then after post launch, I talked a little bit about that from an SEO perspective, but from a technical perspective, after post launch, we're running audits again on the website because we need to make sure, like, hey, when we redesign this website, did we break anything? Is there anything that could potentially harm this website in the eyes of Google? Whether it's speed, whether it's links, whatever it may be, like, we're doing that rigorous approach. And I have to say, like, this is just from experience, and there are outliers for sure. There's some really, really great rigorous website designers out there. But I often find if you don't have a strategic SEO, like core competency of SEO type agency working on a website, a lot of this stuff just gets shoved to the side because people don't, most web designers, when they come out of school or are self-taught, they don't get into this stuff because they don't have to. And it's so important. It will, again, it's kind of like the web hosting. This stuff can make or break your launch of your new website and make you successful or not. Just as a quick anecdote, in one of my business networking groups, photographer, videographer, had a website built a year before I met him. We were talking about things, just chatting. He had some questions about marketing and I had some questions about his business, and we were learning each other's businesses. And he said, "You know what's really weird, Ian? I have never gotten a form completion from my website since it was rebuilt. And I don't know if you've seen this as well, Paul. I'm laughing because to me, it's so outlandish. It's such an outlandish thing to me that
You don't need
uh,
notifications when a form's submitted.
so what was happening, because we audited his website and then and helped him through this. But what was happening was the form was built, but just what you said, nobody was being notified that the forms was submitted, and they were going into Never Land because there was no online database where they were going to. So essentially, this poor guy lost a year's worth of leads, assuming his website was attracting people. He lost a year's worth of leads, which to me, as a business owner, a fellow business owner, and as a marketing professional, it's heartbreaking to me because he invested, and then somebody just didn't take 5-10 extra minutes to ensure, like, hey, did you did you get the form completion after I filled it in? And he just didn't know. And that kind of stuff shouldn't happen. And I think it's a tragedy.
And test everything. That my background, I come from a technical background, and you test it. A lot of times people give me a hard time because I test everything like 50 times, but it's like when I put something into production, I know it's going to work because I've tested it. And it's Ken was talking about having that HTML at the end of your URL. That was probably done in active server pages. And if you have that, it is probably 15 years past time to redesign your website. But one thing I would add, and we're long on time here, one thing I would add is anytime you redesign a website, submit a sitemap to the search engines. And no one ever thinks about that.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that, but that's part of our process. And I'm sure that's part of your process, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good place to wrap up. Ian, you want to take us out? Ken, Ian, thanks for sharing. And thank you to our audience for joining us.
Yeah, please share with other business owners that you think would get value from this. Obviously, we don't do this for the sake of doing it. We love sharing information and educating business owners in their marketing. So also, if you have questions, send them in to us so that we can do a podcast on those questions or respond to you. But until next week, keep calm and market on, folks.